Welcome to r/entitled people, where we share stories from your lives about people who think the rules don't apply to them, and they should get what they want. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel, and for so many likes. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. We're so fed up with a regular customer that he's now pre-banned. The second story. The boss is a complete piece of work, and he got a huge punishment from karma. The third story. How I saved the company from financial ruin by standing up to an incompetent manager. The first story is the worst regular customer I ever had. I recently started work in a high-end wine bar. Small, intimate, lovely place. Amazing boss and mostly nice customers. We've been open only for a little while, and I've been there since the beginning. And since the beginning, we've had one particularly annoying customer. He's a regular, in a couple of times a week and always demands attention. One of our rich, but will spend the least amount of money as possible customers. We're a wine bar, and every day that he comes in, he orders 1 pot of tea, sits there for ages nursing that 1 pot and never tips. He's been in a few times, but here are the highlights. First time he was in, my boss was there, and the guy was weird but no real incident. Second time he was here, I was on my own, and had forgotten who he was, and he pretended he was a health inspector. For 15 minutes he led me on, very deadpan, very matter-of-fact, and started pointing out issues, tiny things, that when I double-checked later were not health and safety violations. He threatened to have the place shut down, me out of a job and my boss heavily fined. He finally admitted he was joking, and I wanted to punch him, but he made it very clear that if he ever sees even a small violation, he will report me and have the place shut down, and he named others he'd done that to. I explained the incident to my boss after it happened, and he told me he's known this guy for years and never liked him. Next time the customer came in, he mentioned the health inspector thing to my boss, and laughed it off as a very clever joke. The customer then went on a 15-minute rant about how I just don't get his sense of humor, and I agreed with him. He didn't seem to like that, and he kept saying it over and over again, seemingly hoping that I would disagree and say I found him hilarious. He then kept making jokes about how he hopes I won't ban him because I can't take a joke. Next few times he was in was just him talking nonsense and me half listening. But one day he came in when we were dead quiet. No other customers yet, and he ordered his usual tea. We were really busy the night before, and a lot of stuff needed to be done. I was on my own and playing catch-up, so he was ranting away as usual, for about 2 hours that day with no other customer coming in. This whole time I was doing dishes and cleaning. He started ranting about how he used to own a bar, and how employees in the service industry don't respect customers anymore. Then he told a story about how his favorite bar that he always spends lots of money in, and tips well, BS, threw him out and banned him for no reason at all. He said that some employees made complaints out of jealousy and spite. Ended up speaking to an employee there later that week, and apparently this guy was harassing 3 employees to the point where they would just refuse service. One even reduced to tears, and the entire staff all asked for him to be banned. The customer's argument was that employees should have no right to ban valued customers like him, as it's their job to serve him and make him happy, not the other way around. He leaves multiple bad reviews on multiple sites over it, and then he tried to get me to swear I would never ban him. Bear in mind, during this entire conversation, I was cleaning, but still somewhat engaging in the conversation. At one point, he just very loudly said, "Excuse me, could you stop working and listen to me? I'm talking." He left shortly after that. Next time he came in, it was at opening time and he was talking to me. My boss was upstairs getting ready for work, and then I got a text, "God love ya, I can hear him." My boss didn't come down until after he left. He then gave me permission to ban him if I need to. The last time he came in, I ended up being late to work on a day I was supposed to open the bar. My bus got stuck behind a protest, so I ended up arriving 5 minutes after we were supposed to open. My boss was okay with it. He was running late himself. We decided to open half an hour later than usual, and I left a sign on the door saying so. 10 minutes later, I was finishing up sweeping and about to start wiping down tables, when the customer knocks on the door, ignoring the sign, and says, "Aren't you gonna let me in?" I knew he would kick up a big fuss if I didn't, so I let him in and made his tea. Told him what happened and that I had a lot to do in hopes he would leave me alone. He made a snide comment about his table had a bit of dirt on it and I wiped it down. 5 minutes later, one of our tea light holders broke slightly. The heat from the tea light candle cracked the glass and a bit broke off, about 3 tables down from him. He implied it was my fault that I didn't stop it, and what would happen if that glass got into his tea, 3 tables away. I went to grab a brush and cloth, and when I went down to the table he was there, pushing the bits of broken glass into his napkin, and complaining about having to waste his napkin doing my job. I told him he shouldn't have done that and he just said he was being friendly. He left shortly after that, but not after complaining about how our tea had gone up in price by 50 cents and how unfair that was on a regular like him, and demanded to pay the old price. I wouldn't let him. Haven't seen him since, but if he comes back and peeves me off again, he will be banned. This client deserves special recognition for his incredible ability to be unbearably annoying. He seems to accept this as his personal mission. To outdo him in his ability to cause discomfort around him is probably only possible through very diligent effort. Pardon me for stating the obvious, but if someone comes in and says he's a health inspector and he's not actually inspecting anything, asks to see his ID or you'll call the police because you suspect him of fraud. Since this guy obviously thinks this is a clever joke, such an act would be a quick way to shut him up and let him know you don't take any crap. Anyway, people like that are just disgusting. It's great that your boss has finally given you the green light to ban this client if need be. I really hope he comes and you can finally ban him for good. The second story is, you were right. Yeah, right, so tired of you. Bye. I live in Sweden and work at a fantastic workplace with many benefits. 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. 30 days paid leave a year. Parenting leave. But I've had my fair share of idiotic bosses and exploiting workplaces. For a while ago, I used to work at a restaurant as a waiter. The restaurant was fairly visited during the whole year, and during the summer season it was really well visited. The norm being that customers would have to book a table to make sure they would be able to come in and eat. I thrived at this place when it came to the contact with customers and other colleagues, but that was about everything that was good with the place together with the food. The restaurant was about a 40-minute drive from my apartment in another city. Schedule was 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays. I had one free day a week, as I was working half-time by contract, and the rest under the table. This means that I checked in between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., but in reality I always closed the restaurant. They made me write it this way so that they wouldn't have to pay as much in taxes nor in evening rates. I wasn't in a very good position back then, so I just had to take it. The owner and manager was a real swine. During weekdays, he was nowhere to be seen. Not even during lunch, which was the time of day in which we got in most customers. He was at the back in his office, trained smoking cigarettes and watching TV while lying in a thing that I wouldn't dare calling a bed. He would come out every now and then, and immediately start shouting at the kitchen staff for whatever reason. He could be heard from the dining space. He would then come out to the register, open it, and control the report and change left, and then he would go back inside and disappear. Friday evenings and Saturdays, he would just sit by the register and help only if he saw that half the tables were full. We had 64 tables. Otherwise, it was up to me to have control of it, from welcoming new customers to taking orders and serving, and then fixing notes and cleaning before the next customer would come in. I think plenty here would recognize the kind. Once I had a minor incident when I was on my way to work. As I was driving by some public gardeners, my driver's window was shattered by a small pebble, which flew into my window from one of their blowers. I stopped to take their insurance details and such, and I called my boss to say I was going to be 10 minutes late. He got furious. He lost it completely and started calling me things. As I got to the restaurant, I saw it was empty, so I asked my colleagues if anybody had come in, and the answer was that they had just opened. Irritated as I was by my boss's behavior, I went to the office and said to him that I was not going to accept again the way he had talked to me 30 minutes before. He was mute, said sorry, and then offered me a cigarette to calm down. Anyways, another day a little later on in May that same year, a German couple came to the restaurant. They were alone, so I went out to them, welcomed them, and gave them the menus. 5 minutes later, I went back and took their order. They asked each for a full glass of white wine of the house, and then a full bottle of the same wine. As it was a weird order, I made sure I had understood it correctly and went to the register and placed the order. The whole conversation was in English, a language that only I and the restaurant spoke fluently enough to have a conversation with someone. As I was preparing the glasses and taking the bottle out, the boss came in. He asked, "What are you doing?" So I explained it to him. He got mad because he was certain that I had gotten it all wrong. I tried telling him that I had double-checked with the customers, but he wouldn't listen. He took the iPad and went to the customers. I can only imagine how that conversation went, as he didn't speak a word of English. He then came back, mumbled something I didn't understand, and I asked him, "Well, what did they say?" He answered that I didn't need to get all cocky, but that I was right. I answered him, "Yeah, right, tired of you." Took off my apron and left, never to come back. This was around a week before Sweden's National Day, the 6th of June, and about a month before the midsummer celebration. Both days mean fully booked schedules for the day. I was offered by the co-owner of the restaurant, my boss's brother, to work only those 2 days for 3 times my hourly rate the whole day, but I kindly declined, answering they could go fudge themselves. Shortly after struck karma even harder, as a health inspector shut down the place for hygienic reasons. When I asked a former colleague where in the restaurant the inspector had found the dirty spots, he said that the only place that was unhygienic was the office. Saying myself up from that place is honestly one of the best things I've ever done in my life, even though it meant living on subsidies for a couple of months, until I found something else and started studying again. It's ironic that your boss finally admits that you were right, but it's too late to hold you back. Your decision to leave that toxic environment and subject your boss to the punishment he deserved in the form of a shutdown on your busiest days is a masterpiece moment. And the cherry on the cake is the news that the restaurant has been shut down by the health inspectorate, and the place where all the filth had accumulated was, who would have thought, the office. The same place your boss spent all his time. Well, he made a mess of it and now he's got it to mop up. If he can, which I highly doubt. This is exactly the ending he deserves. Now that you're free from that hellish restaurant, the world opens its arms to you, full of opportunity and adventure. And the best part? You no longer have to put up with your former boss and his absurd demands. It looks like karma has worked on your side, and you deserve only the best in the future. The third story is, manager lost the company thousands of dollars because he didn't listen to me. I have this manager that drives me nuts. If you've never worked in a corporate setting, there's a specific type of executive you run into every so often that is really high up in the company, but very clearly has no idea what he's talking about. One such executive is one of my direct managers we'll call Andy. I work as a marketing specialist and Andy is the creative director, which means he doesn't technically need to influence my job and the work I do. But Andy loves to look like he's making big decisions and getting results, so he bosses around everyone that he's able to. Andy comes up to me one day and says, "Hey, you need to do your job like this instead of like that." Now, I'm more than happy to take constructive criticism from people who know more than me, but I also happen to be really good at my job and know when I'm being told that something's a bad idea. So I explained to Andy, that's going to negatively affect my numbers because of X, Y, and Z. Andy isn't having it. He's going off about how he's the creative director and I need to listen to him. So I decided to learn from stories I've read here and said, "Okay, will you get me that in writing so I can document the process?" And Andy was more than happy to oblige. I made the changes to my campaigns that he suggested, and sure enough, my numbers tanked over the next 2 weeks. When I was approached by the CEO and asked why I wasn't performing as well as I had, I happily directed my boss to the email from Andy, telling me exactly what changes to make, and my objections to them. Andy has been getting chewed out in the CEO's office for the last half hour. I don't think Andy will be telling me how to do my job anymore. Ah, how sweet it is that self-appointed director Andy burning out on his own yellow ideas. I guess he won't be bothering you with his illiterate management anymore. Who would have thought his own words would backfire on him so quickly? I hope he's learned his lesson. Subscribe, click the like button if you want to support the channel. Thank you for watching.